It is August 14th, 2026, and we are at 12:21 a.m. Okay. It was our wedding anniversary today. We had a good time. Good time. Coming on late because we were celebrating 38 years. 38 years. So, okay. Make sure everything is on and I can be heard. Okay. Thank you for joining so late. We are on day 2,202 days since our son, Richard Halliday, a real hero, y'all, a real hero, distinguished honor graduate, was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, because he was a whistleblower. He was a whistleblower. He was the whistleblower. And they blocked his reports and refused his requests for transfer. They wanted him silenced, and so they forcibly removed him from the barracks room. That's called a code red. Okay, so his chain of command issued a code red to forcibly remove him, take him downstairs to a soundproof room, the arms room, which is also a restricted area, and to take his life. And his remains were then stolen off of Fort Bliss and taken across the border to Mexico for disposal. And so you ask, why did this happen, right? Well, all the evidence is piling up, and the evidence is crying out, and it's speaking up. And now you have more and more arrests and indictments. In the last 18 months, the corroboration of arrests and the fuel theft and all the trafficking and all of the fraud, the fraudsters, right? The deception and the fraudsters. And the fraudsters, we cannot ignore them or make it a smaller crime because they are absolutely part of the bloodiness of all of this, and they're being arrested, right? They're being arrested. The gosh, I would say millions, billions of dollars that are being found now that have been stolen, and maybe it has reached a trillion. Um, it's and what they would do for it, right? What they will do for it, and this is why they wouldn't let Richard be transferred, um, because they wanted to protect. He was the whistleblower for President Trump. This terroristic organization, the El Paso Cartel, and in alliance with the CJNG cartel, the Juarez cartel, the Sinaloa cartel, if you want me to say who they are, right? The El Paso cartel operative, Alejandro de la Vega Foster, a double agent, fuel thief, um, just up to no good, right? Up to no good. Um, so what were they trying to protect? Well, they were trying to protect their criminal enterprise along the borderland. Okay, along the borderland, both sides of the border, exploiting the United States and exploiting Mexico, and of course, um, growing the trafficking network, trafficking everything, from human remains to human organs to humans to children to fast and furious guns to guns for drugs, the Iran Contra. and fuel. Fuel and fuel fiscal, meaning um, back and forth over that border with stealing money from Pemex, stealing money from oil basins, and of course, the largest one being the Premium Basin, and using our infrastructure. So, using um, their illicit gains to uh, compromise um, operators. And what I mean by that is ports and train stations and airports and highways and border entry, um, and of course politicians and judges and lawyers, and control them, uh, because their theft, right? Be it the fuel theft, which was so big just in taxes. They're telling us that Texas lost $1 billion a year just in taxes. $1 billion a year would do Texas a lot of good. Um, and they were losing that just in taxes and the fuel theft. Uh, so can you imagine? And years of it, years and years of it. And I think they're being very conservative with the losses, very conservative, because you've got to watch iPencil, right? The iPencil video that I showed years ago on this over and over again, that the domino effect is much broader than what we even know and can imagine. And so their criminal enterprises, the damage that they have done, we can't really calculate it, right? We can't really calculate it because the dominoes fall in places that we don't know, and internationally, absolutely internationally. And I think our son's case is uh, really a good example of that. It has so many tentacles, and but we're getting to the bottom of it. It's all being exposed, and President Trump is the one exposing it. Uh, you know, he is the president of the United States. He has um, appointed uh, amazing Department of Justice and FBI. And, this is in the middle of mutiny, right? A lot of, you see that in the Senate, total mutiny. Um, yeah. And we know why, right? Because of that oil money, because of the trafficking money, those connections with maybe even connections with the Mormon mafia, right? Maybe connections with that, because they seem to be everywhere. This Mormon mafia, they seem to be everywhere. I can't make it up. I can't even exaggerate it, because it's just right there in front of our face. Um, so now we have, of course, President Trump in the 18 months turning off the spigot of all of this money, like the U.S. aid money, right? The U.S. aid money, and focusing on fraud, and absolutely revealing all of these cartel leaders, and them, working with other governments to have them arrested and extradited, um, stopping uh, the gambling, money laundering that was going on in the Strait of Hormuz. We know that that is a big part of that. Um, and then now he's focused on he was, of course, arresting for the fuel theft, like the Jensen's family, like Maxwell Jensen and Carlsbad, that leads to the exposure of um, Clovis, the train depot, the train station, the train rails. You know, you can't even ignore that. And so now he's focused, President Trump is focused on the United States, very much so. And this huge arrest of Heidi Beisch, what's her name? Bayrish, yeah. Heidi Bayrish. Maybe that's a German name. I don't know. Uh, I don't know how to pronounce her last name the way she wants it pronounced, but I don't care because she's up to no good. She's absolutely up to no good. And she has been arrested. She has connections, y'all. She has connections that lead right to El Paso. Okay. She has connections that lead right to El Paso, and she's the Southern Poverty Law Center that's supposed to be, um, you know, investigating around the United States for people that want to conduct hate crimes or whatever. And what is she doing? She is the with others, right? With others, funding funding hate groups, growing them, right? I mean, if you're going to have the kind of resources that the Southern Poverty Law Center has, you can create hate groups. Okay, I'm going to give you so much money if you can be a hate group, and create white supremacists, right? So she's was doing the exact opposite of what her donors wanted her to do, and having sexual affairs with these uh, hate people, whatever, um, and using money from the Southern Poverty Law Center. This is what she's being accused of for her own benefit, for her own benefit. And, but the real shocker in all of this is that she immediately is connected to El Paso. And like I said, when you look at everything, it seems like El Paso is the epicenter, right? And it doesn't seem so. It is so. The evidence declares that El Paso, Texas, is the epicenter. And it's like all roads lead to El Paso. And Heidi's roads are no different. They lead to El Paso. And she jumped on the ship, the false narrative ship, right away with the Walmart mass shooting. Now, if she's just some kind of person in the public sphere, and she jumps on there, and because she doesn't like Trump and whatever, and she wants to put a false narrative out, or she's on the Beto O'Rourke campaign, and she, just sees the opportunity and jumps on it. It doesn't make it wrong. It does make it wrong. But when you are, you know, an expert of hate crime, right? And work for an organization that it's tasked to identify where the hate crimes are coming from and what groups, right? And you're an expert, quote unquote, kind of. This is the same situation with Fauci. He was supposed to be the expert, and we all know how that worked out, right? He's no expert at all. He's an exploiter and a mass murderer. And that's not me saying it. That's the whole, I mean, I can't tell you how many people are saying it. Um, because the evidence is clear. The evidence is clear. And so for Heidi to, in her position, where people trust that position and want to nip the bud in hate crime, right? Want to make sure they're on a lookout and say, no, we can't do that. So she's, gets paid big money to, uh, have her tools out there, all the tools uh, to monitor so that we don't have hate crime, right? And here she is funding it and growing it, creating it. And she's jumping on the Walmart mass shooting, the orchestrated and bloody Walmart mass shooting, false narrative without even, and this is admitted in all the documents, without even knowing who Patrick Crucius is, with no background check. Because, and if we believe that, because that right there shows you that this was orchestrated, that this was orchestrated from a political um, agenda to protect the fuel thieves and traffickers and fraudsters and major fraudsters, not little fraudsters, major fraudsters, because she had the tools, she had the access to absolutely look into who Patrick Crucius is. And she would have absolutely known that his family is a Mayella family, okay? With access to the El Paso Federal Courthouse, the DA's office, the El Paso FBI field office, and also the Walmart cybersecurity, right? And I would even say the health system, because both the sister and the mother are in the health system, work in the health system. So, yeah, where was the, due diligence that she's tasked with, right? And here's her picture. Where is the due diligence to her supporters to give them what's true and what's right? No, she immediately, matter of fact, it was Southern Poverty looking into it in the last 24 hours. It was shocking, really. It was the Southern Poverty Law Center that is responsible for the whole false narrative of white supremacy attacking President Trump to um, to elevate Beto O'Rourke in his Democratic primary to be the presidential nominee for the 2020 election. Very clear. She was all over that. And that is, so this is East Coast or West Coast. I mean, she has East Coast connections and West Coast connections, y'all. And she has Texas connections and Texas fraud connections, Texas forgery connections, drug connections, real criminal records, her connections. And um, I'll let that kind of, it's so early day. I need to let another day go by to get the full report. But I can tell you right now, she's very connected to El Paso. And just a simple look Google of the narrative coming out on the 4th of August, right, of 2019, you will find her name all over it. And so she's very responsible for this false narrative that's very divisive, very, very divisive, and um, and really tampering with an election, because she still to this day, I don't know anybody else except for the team find Richard Halliday that lets everyone knows, and please share that information, that Patrick Crucius is connected to the Mayella family, to the El Paso Mayella family. Why isn't, because that debunks the entire narrative that they wanted to put out there. And it also is huge evidence, corroborating evidence, that the Walmart mass shooting was indeed orchestrated and staged, and um, a political weaponization. Like, who paid the people to carry out the Walmart mass shooting and to cover it up? What funds did they use? How much of a role did the Southern Poverty Law Center play? Because she's now been arrested for really creating hate groups, hate crime. And not only that, having her sex cult activity with them, right? I shouldn't say sex cult activity. Maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, oh my God. Maybe I should take that back. I don't know. But she was definitely sleeping with them, and and charging donors to, with, using their money for her own personal gain, over and above like whatever salary. So you know and this other guy that's beside her, he worked for Dallas Morning News. Dallas Morning News. Isn't that where Angela Kachurga's husband works for? Isn't that where the false, I mean, he's SPLC, but he, once upon a time, it would be interesting if it was at the same time, 2019, where they were putting out the false narrative. But he has connections. They have connections with Texas. And not truthful connections. And, it's what this tells you is that President Trump is zoned in, focused in on El Paso, Texas. It's like every day something he does absolutely verifies that he is zoned in to El Paso, Texas, and what happened. And that means he's very zoned in. Well, we have 2 letters from him. Of course, we know, because of everything going on behind the scenes, that he is absolutely, he loves Richard. Let me tell you, President Trump loves Richard. He's gone through a lot to be able to get to this position, because he loves El Paso. Him freeing El Paso from the grip of these cartel terroristic organizations, to free Texas up from these cartel terroristic organizations, to free New Mexico up and Arizona up from, this borderland area. And the Southern Poverty Law Center, I can tell you right now, is not a separate issue from El Paso. And I said that the attempts on President Trump's life, not a separate issue from El Paso. Not at all. It seems like everything that happens is, leads to El Paso. There was an arrest in San Antonio that I reported on today also. Um, Here it is. The Neil Kaufis. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Uh, okay, yeah, Kaufis. Um, he's an attorney. Did really, I would think he did exactly what Mario Ortiz Ceroldi did. The same thing. I hope you read this article that I posted up, um, because you see the double standard, right? Well, Mario Ortiz Ceroldi and what he did to exploit women that are trafficked, to pick them up from their captors and have his way with them, and then drop them back off to their captors, being an attorney. And he gets off easy because he knows Mr. 2028 Stamp Montoya. Mr. 2028 Stamp maybe I need to play the Montoya video again, right? The fraud, the fake and the fraud. We don't have proper prosecutions in El Paso because we have a fake and a fraud that's pretending to be the DA. Mr. 2028 Stamp. If he waits long enough, he'll get there, but hopefully he'll be in handcuffs by then. But the double standard is very clear. This attorney in San Antonio got the book slapped down on him, right? Thrown at him. And Mario Ortiz Ceroldi, for I would say even a worse crime, is, given a feather, right? Just, yeah, really let off the hook, protected by Mr. 2028 Stamp. So, we are really getting to the bottom of this, and it's very clear what they were trying to do. Protect the oil theft, protect the fraud, the fraudsters, protect the traffickers at any cost. At any cost. So it's amazing that you have El Paso Matters and El Paso Inc. So El Paso Matters is Bob Moore. El Paso Inc. is Reyes Mata. And I'm really calling those two out because we have 100% confirmation that they knew about the Crucius Mayella connection very early, and they did not report on it. And they knew about it, and they did not report on it. And of course, the I don't want to say it's 100% that the Southern Poverty Law Center knew about the Patrick Crucius Michael Mayella connection. But they have tools, right? They have sources, they have connections. And the way that they did not let any time go by for any kind of investigation before they started spewing out um, accusations of the worst, white supremacy kind of crimes, to tamper with the 2020 election. She could have waited. She could have done some due diligence. But she didn't. You know, they put out a false narrative, and then all of a sudden they were pushing Beto O'Rourke. Like, oh, we're the fans, we're the favorite fans, or whatever. Um, yeah, it's very obvious now what was going on. Okay, everyone. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you for your love and your prayers. And thank everyone for sharing all of the information that we've been putting out. A lot of information, and it is very, very helpful in our son's case. This whole white supremacy thing, what does it have to do with our son's case? Is that they were willing to lie. They were willing to smear. And that's what they did to Richard. And they had an agenda, and that agenda was a political agenda. And that agenda was to elevate Beto O'Rourke against President Trump. And so, very clearly, they they orchestrated a Walmart mass shooting. False flag, really, but it was bloody. They're willing to do those kind of things to stay in power, to control the judicial, to control law enforcement, to control politicians, so that they can continue with impunity to steal oil from you, from me, exploit us, exploit Mexico, exploit the people of Mexico by stealing Pemex and selling it to us at full price when they've stolen it. And the cartel is very active in all this because they get a cut. That's why Jensen's had to pay the CJNG $45 million. They got caught paying them $45 million. So, and there is more. There's more that's coming out. So, but President Trump is on this. Every day that goes by, there is something happening behind the scenes or right there in front of our eyes that show he is dismantling the old system that had been made in the image of the fraudsters. And I know from talking to many people down in Chihuahua, Mexico, that they would say, oh, it's the CIA, it's the FBI, it's this and this that is doing it, right? They knew. They knew that but they would attribute that to the United States. And really, it wasn't. It was a political class, right? A political class that was doing this to us. And so now President Trump is rebuilding the system that's meant for a golden age, right? A golden age. The old system that made America so quickly very, very wealthy. And so financially, looking at his moves financially, looking at his moves against the criminals, um, and the false narratives, it really, this is a beginning of, I think, some really good stuff, really good stuff. And that means the return of our son's remains. Because if you're talking about goodness, that means stopping the withholding of our son's remains and the return of them. So, and holding those responsible accountable. And I think that's what he just did, right? Was hold one of the people responsible for what happened to our son accountable. And absolutely, Heidi is one of them. Because Richard was the whistleblower. And our evidence indicates stronger every day that he was whistleblowing on the planning of the orchestrated Walmart bloody mass shooting before even a shot was fired. Because we know for sure that he had information about the Walmart mass shooting that he was reporting that was connected to his unit. And now, more and more, as more people are arrested and more evidence comes out and more people are filing lawsuits and more discovery is made, the evidence well, the highest mountain around here is Mount Mitchell. The evidence gets higher than Mount Mitchell, and Mount Mitchell is pretty high. So we're pretty high. That evidence is piling up. So we're getting closer and closer. We know who has our son's remains, and we're getting closer and closer to getting them repatriated. So thank you so much. God bless you, and I will be back